tell you, I went to the Senate floor and I couldn't get time to give my speech, so I came back here.
Glad to have you.
Mr. Bentley, I want to follow on your expertise. You heard me talk about the bill I have in to involve greater the Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center. You spoke to that as well. And whether it's schools or places of worship or other community organizations, it seems to me it's a step we ought to take. Is behavioral threat assessment the best method to identify an individual mobilizing towards violence and intercede before a violent act is committed?
That question. The process of behavior threat assessment coupled with emergency preparedness training and physical security measures help provide safer schools, places of worship, and safer communities if they are coupled together with fidelity. And individuals are educated in that process.
Behavioral threat assessment for you again are utilized by schools, workplaces, civil society organizations so that folks closest to the person moving towards violence can recognize the signs and, if appropriate, involve law enforcement. There are some who don't believe that we should be involving law enforcement with a person who is getting closer and closer to violence, in part because they distrust police. Do you believe that organizations who desire to implement behavioral threat assessment programs should have access to training necessary to implement such programs?
And that's one of the things that I'm here for, is that a number of the schools and organizations, places of worship that we work with aren't getting the good information that's out there and that training that would enable them to better recognize and inform individuals who are in positions to make decisions about situations that are occurring. So better education of school employees, from the superintendent down to the individuals that work in the lunchroom, would be beneficial in providing safe and more secure learning environments.
Mr. Smith, your organization filed an amicus brief in the New York Rifle Association versus Bruin case. In that case, you cited you cited discriminatory and racial motivations behind gun control policies. Can you tell me how gun control policies like bans on semi-automatic rifles and magazine restrictions negatively impact minorities like members of your organization?
Thank you, Senator. I'll give you a great example. Oftentimes in my organization, as I said, we have over 48,000 members, very robust, very active. Oftentimes I'll get an email from a single black mom who's living in a quote-unquote challenged area who says, "Hey, Phil, I just bought a AR-15. Thank you for the organization. Thank you for the training," because she now feels she's able to protect herself. If you implement a lot of these proposals that I'm hearing today, lots and lots of black single women, lots of black men who are trying to get protection in these tough neighborhoods, hood, whatever you want to call it, are not going to be able to do that. That's why they're discriminatory in their long-term effect on our community. So I'm opposed to anything along those lines.
Could you tell me why bans on so-called assault weapons and standard capacity magazines are not effective and only serve to limit an individual's constitutionally protected right to self-defense?
Because the bans don't work. That was been proven in the 90s. They just do not work. They only prevent my community to having the best tool possible to protect themselves. And I'll say this, for my family, it's the best firearm to protect my wife, my children, my property. It's a very good tool when used by a law-abiding citizen. That's why it's very important for us to have that access to that particular weapon.
Thank you.
Senator